My dad missed my graduation for his fiance, so I missed their wedding. Actually, that's not quite true. I showed up, just not in the way they expected. Dad met Brielle when I was 15, 6 months after Mom died. She was 28, which made her closer to my age than his. She makes me feel young again, he'd say. Like that justified everything. What it really meant was that I reminded him of Mom, and Brielle didn't. The changes started small. Date nights became date weekends. Family dinners disappeared entirely. By my senior year, I was eating alone most nights, while Dad and Brielle went to wine tastings and couples yoga. You're basically an adult now, he'd say when I complained. You don't need me hovering. When graduation approached, I reminded him weekly, sent calendar invites, left sticky notes on his bathroom mirror. June 8th, Dad, 2:00 p.m. You promised you'd be there. He'd nod, check his phone, and assure me he wouldn't miss it for the world. He'd missed everything else that year. My college acceptance, my scholarship interview, even my 18th birthday dinner because Brielle had tickets to some concert. Then, 3 days before graduation, Brielle announced they'd booked a surprise trip to Napa for that exact weekend. It's non-refundable, Dad explained apologetically. And Brielle worked so hard planning it. Your graduation is just walking across a stage. We'll celebrate when I get back. I sat in the auditorium scanning for his face as they called my name. Mom's parents were there, crying. My aunt drove 4 hours. Even my cousin who lived in Seattle flew in. The seat I'd saved for Dad, right in the middle of the family section, stayed empty. That night, while I ate grocery store cake alone in our kitchen, his Instagram story showed him and Brielle clinking champagne glasses in a hot tub. When they got engaged 2 months later, I was expected to be thrilled. The wedding planning consumed everything. Brielle asked me to be a bridesmaid, then proceeded to choose a dress that cost $400 and required professional alterations. Family helps family, Dad said when I hesitated about the price. This from the man who'd refused to help with my college application fees because he was saving for the honeymoon. The wedding invitations arrived on expensive cardstock. 200 guests, an oceanside venue, a live band. Everything I'd dreamed my own wedding might be someday, if Dad ever bothered to show up for that either. I planned carefully. The week before the wedding, I told Dad I wouldn't be attending. You missed the most important day of my life for her. I'm returning the favor. He was furious, called me selfish and ungrateful, and accused me of trying to ruin his happiness. Brielle cried about toxic energy and poisonous family members, but I did show up. During the ceremony, right as the officiant asked if anyone objected, I walked down the aisle in my graduation gown and cap. I handed Dad the program from my graduation, his empty seat circled in red marker, then placed Mom's wedding ring on his chair. She would have been there, I said clearly. The room went silent. People were staring. What I didn't mention was the envelope I'd already mailed to every wedding guest that morning, containing screenshots of Dad's texts to Brielle during my actual graduation ceremony. Messages that read, "Thank God we escaped that boring ceremony," and "Can you imagine sitting through 3 hours of teenage speeches?" And one that said, "Your daughter's graduation would have been absolute torture." Except Brielle didn't have a daughter. The number he'd been texting wasn't hers. It belonged to his assistant. I couldn't fit what happens next in this short video. Watch the rest down below. The silence in that room was deafening. Dad's face drained of color as he stared at the graduation program in his hands. Brielle looked confused, glancing between us with her perfectly styled eyebrows pulled together. The officiant cleared his throat awkwardly, unsure whether to continue. "What are you talking about?" Brielle asked, her voice sharp. She was still holding her bouquet, white roses trembling slightly. "What assistant?" I pulled out my phone, turned up the volume, and played the voicemail. Dad's voice filled the pristine venue, echoing off the vaulted ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. "Vanessa, I can't stop thinking about last night. Brielle's staying at her mother's this weekend. Come over Friday. I'll leave the side door unlocked." The collective gasp from 200 guests was almost satisfying enough to justify the $400 bridesmaid dress hanging in my closet at home. Almost. Brielle snatched the phone from my hand, her acrylic nails scraping my palm. She replayed it 3 times, her face shifting from confusion to realization to rage. "Vanessa? Your assistant Vanessa? The 24-year-old you hired 6 months ago?" Dad tried to grab the phone. "Brielle, this is taken out of context. She's trying to sabotage us." "Context?" I laughed, the sound bitter. "The context is that while you were supposedly working late, you were with her. The context is that half your business trips included her on the company credit card. The context is, that's enough." Dad's voice was low, dangerous. The same tone he'd used when I questioned why Brielle was moving in so soon after Mom's death. The same tone that had shut down every conversation about him actually parenting me. But I wasn't 15 anymore, scared and grieving and desperate for any scrap of his attention. "No," I said clearly. "It's not nearly enough." I pulled out the folder I'd tucked under my graduation gown. 3 months of receipts, hotel bookings, restaurant charges, all from Dad's company account, all submitted for reimbursement, all with Vanessa listed as his guest. I'd gotten them from his home office 2 weeks ago while he and Brielle were at their couple's massage. December 3rd, the Ritz-Carlton. 2 rooms adjoining. Your anniversary trip with Brielle was actually the weekend she had food poisoning, remember? Except you weren't in Portland at a conference. You were in San Diego. I walked down the aisle, handing papers to guests in the front rows. January 14th, the weekend Brielle thought you were visiting your college roommate. You were in Vegas. Vanessa posted photos from the same hotel lobby on her Instagram. She tagged the location. Brielle was scrolling frantically on her own phone now, pulling up Vanessa's social media. Her hands were shaking. "You said you were at Brett's bachelor party in Seattle that weekend. February 8th, I continued, my voice steady. Dinner at Maestro's. 437. Wine pairing. Vanessa uploaded a photo of the exact wine you ordered. Same night, same restaurant, same table by the window. I paused. That was my 18th birthday. The one you missed because of an emergency client dinner. My aunt stood up from her seat, her face twisted with disgust. She'd driven 4 hours to my graduation, sat with me during the reception, and helped me box up the pieces of my broken relationship with Dad. Richard, is this true? Dad's jaw clenched. For a moment, I thought he might actually confess, might show some shred of the man who used to read me bedtime stories and taught me to ride a bike. Instead, he pointed at me. Get out. You're not welcome here. You've always been jealous of Brielle, always trying to come between us. Your mother would be ashamed. The words hit like a physical blow. My mother, who'd loved him for 20 years, who'd died slowly of cancer while he'd held her hand and promised to take care of me. My mother, whose wedding ring now sat on his chair, a silent witness to everything he'd become. Don't. My voice cracked. Don't you dare talk about Mom. Brielle threw her bouquet on the ground, white roses scattering across the aisle. We're done. The wedding is off. Everyone leave. She turned to Dad, her face streaked with mascara. And you can sleep at Vanessa's tonight. I'm changing the locks. She swept past me, her $3,000 dress rustling. Her bridesmaids scrambled after her, shooting me looks that ranged from sympathetic to hostile. The groomsmen stood frozen, unsure whether to comfort Dad or leave. Dad grabbed my arm as I turned to go. You've ruined everything. Everything. Are you happy now? I looked at his hand on my arm, then met his eyes. You ruined it yourself. I just made sure everyone else could see. I pulled free and walked back down the aisle, past the staring guests, past the expensive floral arrangements and the string quartet that had stopped playing. My grandparents caught up with me in the parking lot. Grandma was crying, pulling me into a tight hug that smelled like her rose perfume. Your mother would be proud, she whispered. So proud. We drove to their house, the same house where Mom had grown up, where I'd spent every holiday before she got sick. Grandpa made coffee while I sat at the kitchen table, still in my graduation gown, and told them everything. The missed events, the loneliness, the way Dad had slowly erased Mom from the house and from his life. The assistant named Vanessa, who I'd discovered 3 months ago when I'd used Dad's laptop to print my college essays. I didn't plan to expose the affair, I admitted. I just wanted him to feel something, to understand what it's like to have someone not show up for you. But when I found those texts, and the receipts, and realized he'd been lying to Brielle too, he made his choices, Grandpa said firmly. You showed courage today. That took strength, but I didn't feel strong. I felt hollowed out, exhausted from carrying 3 months of secrets and 6 months of grief and 18 years of trying to be the daughter he wanted instead of the burden I'd become. My phone started buzzing, text after text, some from wedding guests I barely knew, asking if I was okay, others from relatives I'd never met, telling me I'd crossed a line, one from my cousin in Seattle. Holy shit, you're my hero. Then one from Brielle. I need to talk to you. Can we meet tomorrow? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Why? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Because I think we both deserved better than him. The coffee shop Brielle chose was 20 minutes from both our houses. Neutral territory. I arrived early, ordering a black coffee I didn't really want and claiming a corner table. My hands were shaking slightly. Part of me expected her to show up with Dad, to tell me I'd been wrong, that they'd worked things out and I was no longer welcome in his life. She arrived alone, her hair in a simple ponytail, no makeup. She looked younger without all the wedding preparation, closer to her actual 28 years. She ordered a latte and sat across from me, her hands wrapped around the cup like she needed the warmth. I left him, she said without preamble. Moved my stuff out yesterday while he was at work. My brother helped. I nodded, unsure what to say. I'm sorry. Don't be. She took a sip of her latte, wincing when it burned her tongue. I called Vanessa last night. We talked for 2 hours. She had no idea he was engaged. He told her you were away at college, that he was separated, that the wedding ring was just for show at work. She believed him? Why wouldn't she? He's charming, successful, emotionally available when he wants to be. Brielle's laugh was hollow. I believed him too. When we met, he told me his marriage had been dead for years, that your mom was cold and distant, that they only stayed together for you. My grip tightened on my coffee cup. That's a lie. Mom loved him. Even at the end, even when the cancer made her mean and scared, she loved him. I know that now. Brielle pulled out her phone, scrolling to a photo. Vanessa sent me this. It was a text exchange between Dad and Vanessa from 6 months ago. My fiance doesn't understand me. She's too young, too immature. I made a mistake getting engaged. And another. You're the only one who really sees me. The same things he'd probably said about Mom to Brielle. The same things he'd say about Brielle to whoever came next. He's 47, I said quietly. You're 28. I'm 18. Vanessa's 24. Do you see the pattern? Brielle's eyes filled with tears. I thought I was special, that we had something real. He made me feel alive, like I was the only person who mattered. She laughed bitterly. God, I sound pathetic. You sound like someone he manipulated. I surprised myself by reaching across the table, touching her hand. He does that. Makes you feel like you're the problem when things go wrong, like you're asking for too much when you just want basic respect. We sat in silence for a moment, 2 people who'd loved the same man, and learned too late that he wasn't capable of loving anyone back. I'm sorry, Brielle said finally, for everything. For taking up all his time, for the graduation, for the bridesmaid dress, for not seeing what he was doing to you. You didn't know. I should have. She pulled her hand back, wiping her eyes. I was so caught up in being young and in love and having this fancy life that I didn't notice there was a kid in the house who was being neglected. I heard you eating dinner alone. I saw you waiting up for him on your birthday. I told myself it wasn't my place to interfere. The honesty hurt, but it was clean, not like Dad's lies. What are you going to do now? I asked. Move back to Portland. My old roommate says her couch is available until I find a place. Start over, probably get therapy to figure out why I thought dating a man almost 20 years older would end well. She attempted a smile. What about you? College in August. I got into state on a full scholarship. I was going to commute from home, but I trailed off. But home isn't really home anymore. It hasn't been for a while. We finished our coffee, exchanged numbers, and promised to stay in touch. I didn't know if we would. Sometimes people bonded through shared trauma only to drift apart once the crisis passed. But as I watched Brielle drive away in her packed car, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, exactly. More like understanding. Dad called me 47 times over the next 3 days. I didn't answer. He showed up at my grandparents' house on day 4, pounding on the door until Grandpa threatened to call the police. I need to talk to my daughter, he shouted through the door. Your daughter doesn't want to talk to you, Grandpa called back. She's 18. She's still my kid. I have rights. You gave up those rights when you chose your affair over her graduation, Grandpa said, his voice hard. Now leave before I make good on calling the sheriff. Dad left, but not before slashing Grandpa's mailbox with his car keys. It was petty, vindictive, and exactly the kind of thing he'd do when he didn't get his way. Mom used to joke that he had the emotional regulation of a toddler when things didn't go according to plan. I'd never understood what she meant until now. The screenshots I'd mailed to wedding guests made their way onto Facebook within 48 hours. I hadn't posted them myself, but someone did, tagging Dad's business partners, his golf buddies, even his company's official page. The comments were brutal. Cheating on your fiance with an employee? Classy. This man missed his daughter's graduation for a weekend with his mistress. Disgusting. Fire him. You don't want this representing your company. Dad's firm put him on administrative leave pending an investigation into his use of company funds for personal expenses. Turned out dating your subordinate while charging dinners to the corporate card was frowned upon. Vanessa quit, moved to Denver, and blocked him on everything. Brielle filed for the return of her grandmother's engagement ring he'd proposed with, claiming it was given under false pretenses. The legal fees alone would cost him thousands. I watched his life unravel from the safety of my grandparents' guest room, feeling nothing. Maybe I should have felt guilty. Maybe I should have regretted the nuclear option. But every time doubt crept in, I remembered sitting alone on my 18th birthday, staring at my phone, waiting for a call that never came. My aunt set up a lunch with my cousin who'd flown in from Seattle. Her name was Kennedy, and she'd left home at 19 after her parents tried to force her into their church's arranged marriage program. You did the right thing, Kennedy said over sandwiches. Family doesn't get a free pass to treat you like garbage just because you share DNA. Everyone's saying I went too far. Everyone can shut up. She pointed a carrot stick at me. You gave him chances. You communicated clearly. You set boundaries. He ignored all of it. This wasn't revenge. It was consequences. There's a difference. It feels like revenge. Good. It should. He deserves to feel what you felt. Humiliated, forgotten, unimportant. Kennedy softened. Look, I'm not saying you'll feel great about this forever. You might have complicated feelings, but don't let anyone make you believe you were wrong for standing up for yourself. I nodded, pushing lettuce around my plate. Brielle apologized. Really? She said she should have noticed. That she was sorry for not seeing what he was doing to me. That's big of her. Kennedy considered this. You going to forgive her? I don't know. Maybe. She was a victim too, in a way. He lied to her about Mom, about Vanessa, probably about a dozen other things. But she still let him neglect you, whether she knew it consciously or not. Yeah. I took a bite of my sandwich, tasting nothing. Yeah. The weeks leading up to college were strange. I packed my dorm room essentials in boxes at my grandparents' house, went shopping for bedding and desk supplies with Grandma, registered for classes online, filled out housing forms, all the normal first-year college student things, except I was doing them without any input from Dad. Mom and I had talked about college when I was younger. She'd gone to state too, majored in English, joined the creative writing club. You'll love it, she'd said during one of her good days when the chemo fog had lifted. The campus has this beautiful library with tall windows. I used to study there for hours. I found photos of her college years in an album at my grandparents' house. Mom at 19, wearing high-waisted jeans and an oversized sweater, laughing with friends. Mom at her graduation, beaming next to her own parents. Mom on the library steps, books tucked under her arm. She was so happy there, Grandma said, looking over my shoulder. Those were good years for her. Before Dad, Grandma hesitated. Your father wasn't always like this. When they first met, he was kind, attentive. He wrote her poems, can you believe that? Sent her flowers for no reason. Your mom thought she'd won the lottery. What changed? Life, I suppose. Stress. He got promoted, started working longer hours. When you were born, he seemed to resent the attention you needed, like he was competing with a baby. She shook her head. Your mom tried everything. Therapy, date nights, counseling through the church. Nothing helped. By the time she got sick, they were basically roommates. He told Brielle their marriage was dead for years. That mom was cold. Grandma's face hardened. Your mother was the warmest person I knew. Even dying, she made sure you felt loved. Made sure you knew you mattered. She squeezed my hand. Don't let him rewrite history. Don't let him make her into someone she wasn't just to justify his choices. I left for college on a humid August morning. Grandpa loaded my boxes into his truck while Grandma fussed over my first aid kit and whether I'd packed enough socks. My aunt and Kennedy came to see me off, bringing cookies and advice. Call if you need anything, my aunt said, hugging me tight. Anything at all, even if it's just to talk. And don't take crap from your roommate, Kennedy added. Set boundaries early. The drive to campus took 90 minutes. Grandpa helped me move into my dorm room, a tiny space I'd be sharing with a girl named Patricia, who'd left a note saying she'd arrive tomorrow. We set up my bed, organized my desk, hung Mom's photos on the wall. You're going to do great things here, Grandpa said gruffly, pulling me into a hug. Your mom knew it. I know it. After he left, I sat on my narrow dorm bed, surrounded by boxes and the unfamiliar smell of industrial cleaning products, and cried. Not from sadness, exactly. From relief, from exhaustion, from the overwhelming weight of finally being free. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed my life, my career, everything I built. I hope college is worth losing your father over. I blocked his number and unplugged my phone to charge. Freshman orientation was a blur of icebreakers and campus tours. I met Patricia, a biology major from upstate, who immediately asked if I wanted to hang Mom's photos on that side of the room, or would I prefer the window view. We clicked instantly, bonding over our shared hatred of small talk and love of bad reality TV. I joined the creative writing club, remembering Mom's stories about late-night workshops and critique sessions. The first meeting was in the same library she'd studied in, beneath those tall windows she'd described. I sat in a corner with my notebook, listening to other students share their work, and felt her presence like a hand on my shoulder. The creative writing professor, Dr. Helena Ward, was a published novelist with silver hair and sharp eyes. She read my first assignment, an essay about loss and betrayal, and asked me to stay after class. This is raw, she said, tapping my pages. Powerful. Have you considered expanding it? Into what? A memoir, perhaps. Or a personal essay for submission. There are journals that publish this kind of confessional work. It's good. Better than good. It's just something that happened to me. That's where the best writing comes from. She handed my essay back. Think about it. You have a voice. Don't waste it. I thought about it. Over the next few weeks, between classes and study sessions and learning how to do my own laundry, I wrote. About Mom's death and Dad's abandonment. About Brielle and Vanessa and the wedding that wasn't. About graduation day and empty seats and the moment I realized I couldn't count on him anymore. The words poured out like poison I'd been storing. Dr. Ward helped me shape it, tighten it, make it hurt in all the right places. By October, I'd finished a 4,000-word essay titled The Empty Chair. I submitted it to a literary journal that specialized in personal narratives. I didn't expect to hear back. Most submissions got rejected, Dr. Ward had warned. But 3 weeks later, I got an email. We'd love to publish your piece in our winter issue. The essay went live in December. Within 24 hours, it had been shared 1,200 times on social media. People commented about their own absent parents, their own broken families, their own moments of standing up. A few literary agents reached out, asking if I had more material. One wanted to discuss a book deal. Dad found the essay 4 days after publication. I know because he created a new email address to contact me, bypassing the block on his old one. You made me look like a monster, he wrote. Aired our private business to the entire world. You've humiliated me in front of clients, friends, everyone I know. Lawyers tell me I might have grounds for defamation. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the email to Dr. Ward, who forwarded it to the university's legal department. They sent Dad a cease and desist letter explaining that truth is an absolute defense against defamation, and that contacting me again would result in a restraining order. He stopped emailing after that. By spring semester, The Empty Chair had been read over 100,000 times. I did a phone interview with a podcast about estranged families. A women's magazine asked me to write a follow-up about navigating college without parental support. The book agent convinced me to start outlining a memoir. Life became strange in the best way. I was no longer just the girl whose dad missed her graduation. I was a writer, a student, someone building something entirely my own. Patricia and I hosted movie nights in our dorm. I joined the campus literary magazine as an editor. I went to parties, made friends, stayed up too late talking about philosophy and bad poetry. Grandma sent care packages every 2 weeks. Cookies, notes, sometimes just cards that said, thinking of you. Grandpa called every Sunday to ask about classes and whether I was eating enough vegetables. My aunt visited for Parents' Weekend, taking Patricia and me out for dinner, and pretending not to notice when I cried during the dessert course. Kennedy flew in for my birthday in February, showing up with cupcakes and a card signed by half my relatives. We spent the weekend exploring the city, eating too much, and not talking about Dad at all. You seem different, Kennedy said on her last night. Lighter. I feel different. I paused. I don't think about him as much anymore. That's good. That's healthy. Sometimes I still get angry. Like randomly, I'll remember something he said or did, and I'll just burn. That's normal too. Healing isn't linear. Kennedy bumped my shoulder. But you're doing it. That's what matters. The book agent, a woman named Rachel, called in March. I've got interest from 3 publishers. They want the full proposal by May. Think you can have something ready? What exactly do they want? Your story. All of it. The grief, the neglect, the wedding, the aftermath, how you rebuilt. People are hungry for stories about cutting off toxic family, about choosing yourself. You've got something real here. I spent spring break at my grandparents' house, writing. Grandma brought me tea and sandwiches while I typed at the kitchen table. Grandpa proofread chapters, offering surprisingly sharp editorial notes. This section drags, he'd say, or more detail here. Make us feel it. The proposal came together. 60,000 words about losing my mother, losing my father, and finding myself in the wreckage. 3 publishers made offers. We went with the one offering the biggest advance, $75,000 split over 2 payments. I called my aunt crying. That's more than Dad gave me my entire childhood. That's because you earned it, she said fiercely. You bled for that book. It's yours. I used part of the advance to pay back my grandparents for all the support they'd given me. They tried to refuse, but I insisted. The rest went into a savings account for future tuition and living expenses. For the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about money. Finals came and went. I finished freshman year with a 3.7 GPA and 2 more published essays. Patricia and I signed up to be roommates again for sophomore year. Dr. Ward invited me to be her teaching assistant in the fall. Summer arrived with the kind of heat that made the asphalt shimmer. I got an internship at a local magazine, writing features and learning layout design. In the evenings, I worked on the memoir. slowly building the narrative arc that would take readers from Mom's diagnosis to Dad's wedding to my first day of college. Brielle reached out in late June. We'd texted sporadically throughout the year, mostly surface-level check-ins. But this message was longer. I saw your essay. I'm proud of you. Also, I'm getting married. For real this time? To someone age-appropriate. I'd love if you could come. The wedding was small, just 30 people at a garden venue in Portland. Brielle's fiance was named Owen, a 31-year-old teacher with kind eyes and a gentle laugh. He clearly adored her. The way he touched the small of her back and listened when she talked. The way he'd looked at her wasn't possessive or performative. It was simply present. Thank you for coming, Brielle said during the reception. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either, I admitted. But you deserve to be happy. Real happy. Not the fake version Dad sold you. He called me last month. Wanted to meet up. Talk about what happened. My stomach tightened. Did you? No, I told him I'd moved on and he should too. She sipped her champagne. He's dating someone new, apparently. Works at his gym. She's 25. Of course she is. Vanessa warned her. Sent her screenshots of his old messages, told her everything. The girl blocked him immediately. I laughed, surprising myself. Good for Vanessa. She's thriving, by the way. Got promoted to senior coordinator at a tech company in Denver. Posted about it on LinkedIn with a whole caption about knowing your worth and leaving toxic situations. We stood together watching Owen dance with his mother, his obvious joy contagious. Do you think you'll ever talk to him again? Brielle asked quietly. Your dad? I don't know. Part of me thinks maybe someday, if he actually apologized and meant it. But I'm not holding my breath. What would a real apology even look like from him? I thought about it. Accountability. Not just, I'm sorry you're hurt, but I'm sorry I missed your graduation. I'm sorry I chose my affair over being your parent. I'm sorry I let you down. And then actually changing, which I don't think he's capable of. Probably not. Brielle squeezed my hand. But you're going to be okay. You already are. She was right. I was okay. More than okay, actually. I was building a life Dad couldn't touch or ruin or diminish. A life where I wasn't waiting for him to show up or notice me or care. The memoir was due to my publisher in September. I spent August writing and rewriting, shaping the narrative until it sang. Dr. Ward read the final draft, offering notes on structure and pacing. Rachel, my agent, pushed me to dig deeper in certain chapters, to not let Dad off the hook with vague language. This section where he misses your birthday, she said during a call. You write that he couldn't make it. But that's passive. He chose not to make it. He prioritized wine tasting with his mistress over his daughter. Say it. So I rewrote it. Made it sharper, clearer, more honest. Stripped away any protective instinct I still had for Dad's reputation. The manuscript went to the publisher on September 15th. 2 weeks later, they sent the cover design. My graduation cap and gown against a stark white background. The title in bold black letters. The Empty Chair. A memoir of loss, betrayal, and learning to save yourself. Publication date was set for March. 6 months to wait, to second guess, to wonder if I was making a mistake. But every time doubt crept in, I remembered why I'd written it. Not for revenge, though that was a side benefit. But for every kid who'd been overlooked, forgotten, pushed aside by a parent who couldn't be bothered to show up. Sophomore year started with familiar comfort. Patricia and I moved into a slightly bigger dorm room. I began my teaching assistant position with Dr. Ward, leading discussion sections for freshman composition. The magazine internship turned into a paying gig, writing a monthly column about student life. I dated briefly, a guy from my philosophy class named Theo, who was sweet but ultimately too focused on his pre-med track to make time for a relationship. We parted amicably, stayed friends, still grabbed coffee between classes. Life became beautifully ordinary. Classes, writing, work, friends, movie nights and study groups and terrible dining hall food. No drama, no crisis, just the steady rhythm of growing up. Dad tried to contact me one more time in November. This time through LinkedIn, of all places. A professional message asking to reconnect and discuss our relationship in a mature manner. I stared at it for a long time before blocking him there too. Christmas came. I spent it at my grandparents' house with my aunt and Kennedy. We cooked too much food, watched old movies, and exchanged modest gifts. Grandma gave me Mom's pearl necklace, the one she'd worn at her own wedding. She wanted you to have this when you were ready, Grandma said, fastening it around my neck. I wore it every day after that. A tangible reminder of the parent who'd loved me unconditionally, who'd shown up even when showing up was hard, who'd chosen me every single day until she couldn't anymore. The galley proofs of my memoir arrived in January. Seeing my words in actual book format made everything real. I did interviews for the publisher's marketing team, recorded promo videos, wrote guest posts for blogs about estrangement and healing. The publisher arranged a small book tour, 5 cities, mostly independent bookstores and college campuses. The tour started 2 weeks after publication, beginning at a bookstore 3 blocks from campus. Dr. Ward introduced me at the first event to a crowd of about 60 people. I read the chapter about graduation day, about the empty seat and the grocery store cake. When I finished, the room was silent except for someone sniffling in the back row. The Q&A was emotional. A woman in her 40s asked how I'd found the courage to cut Dad off. A college student wanted to know if I'd ever regretted it. A mother asked what she could do to make sure her daughter never felt the way I had. Just show up, I said simply. Even when it's inconvenient. Especially when it's inconvenient. Your presence matters more than you know. Book sales started modestly but picked up momentum as reviews came in. A starred review from Publishers Weekly. A feature in People magazine about dysfunctional families. A morning show segment where I talked about generational patterns of neglect. The book hit the bestseller list in week 3. Not number 1, but number 7, which Rachel said was incredible for a debut memoir from an unknown author. The publisher ordered a second printing. Dad found out about the book in April. I know because he left a voicemail on my grandparents' landline, the one number he had that I couldn't block. Grandpa called to tell me. He's threatening to sue, Grandpa said. Says you've defamed him, destroyed his reputation, cost him business opportunities. Can he actually do that? Legally? No. Your publisher has lawyers who vetted every word. Everything in that book is documented truth. Grandpa paused, but he's angry, embarrassed. People at his country club are reading it. His boss read it. He's facing consequences and he doesn't like it. Good. I agree. But be prepared. He might escalate. He did. Dad hired a lawyer who sent threatening letters to my publisher, demanding the book be pulled from shelves. The publisher's legal team responded with a detailed refutation of every claim. The letters stopped. Then he tried public relations. Did an interview with a local podcast claiming I'd exaggerated everything, that he'd been a devoted father, that I was mentally unstable and seeking attention. The interviewer, who'd actually read my book, asked him point blank why he'd missed graduation. I had a work emergency, Dad lied smoothly. Your daughter has screenshots of your texts from that day. You were in Napa Valley with your fiance. Those are fabricated. Multiple wedding guests confirmed receiving them. Are they all lying? The interview ended badly for Dad. The podcast released it anyway, prefacing it with a disclaimer about the documented evidence supporting my version of events. Dad became a minor villain in the online discourse about toxic parenting, his name synonymous with narcissistic fathers who abandoned their children. I watched it all from a distance, neither celebrating nor mourning. He'd made his choices. These were the natural results. My aunt called in May, her voice tight. Your dad had a heart attack. He's stable, but it was serious. He's asking for you. My hands went cold. Is he going to be okay? Probably. The doctors say it was moderate, not severe. But he's scared. She hesitated. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just telling you what's happening. I sat with the information for 3 days. Talked to Patricia, to Dr. Ward, to my therapist I'd started seeing sophomore year. Everyone had opinions, but they all boiled down to the same message. Only I could decide what felt right. I visited him on a Saturday afternoon. The hospital was the same one where Mom had died, which felt cruelly poetic. Dad looked smaller in the hospital bed, older. The machines beeping around him a reminder of his mortality. You came, he said, his voice weak. I'm not here to reconcile. I'm here because my aunt called and said you were sick. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. We sat in silence for a moment. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time in years. Maybe he was. Your book, he started. Don't. I held up a hand. I don't want to hear that you're sorry unless you actually mean it. And I don't want to hear excuses. I'm not making excuses. He shifted in the bed, wincing. I didn't realize how bad it was. How much I'd hurt you. You knew. You just didn't care enough to change. His eyes filled with tears. You're right. I was selfish. I wanted to feel young and desirable and free. And you reminded me of responsibility and aging and your mother. And I couldn't handle that. It was the closest to honesty he'd ever come. But honesty without action was just words. What do you want from me, Dad? I don't know. Forgiveness, maybe. A chance to try again. I'm not ready for that. Maybe I never will be. He nodded, looking away. I understand. Do you? I leaned forward. Because understanding would mean actually changing, getting therapy, making amends, being a different person. Are you willing to do that? I don't know if I can. Then we don't have anything else to talk about. I left the hospital feeling empty, not sad, not relieved, just done. Dr. Ward had once told me that closure doesn't always come from grand confrontations or perfect apologies. Sometimes it comes from realizing you don't need anything from someone anymore. I didn't need Dad's approval or love or attention. I'd built a life without those things. A good life, a full life, one where I was valued and seen and supported by people who showed up consistently, not just when it was convenient. Final exams came and went. Summer arrived with opportunities, a paid internship at a publishing house, another essay assignment from a major magazine, interest from producers about adapting my memoir into a limited series. Patricia and I got an apartment together for junior year, a tiny 2-bedroom near campus with a leaky faucet and terrible water pressure, but windows that let in beautiful morning light. We painted the walls, hung shelves, made it ours. I heard through my aunt that Dad had started therapy after his heart attack, that he'd broken up with a 25-year-old from his gym, that he was attending a support group for parents estranged from their children. I didn't know if it would last, if the changes were real or just another performance. I didn't particularly care. My life moved forward without him in it. I wrote more, published more, built my career and my relationships. Dated a girl named Ivy from my editing class, someone who made me laugh and challenged my ideas and showed up when she said she would. We were taking things slow, figuring out what we wanted, but it felt healthy in a way my previous relationship hadn't. Grandma got sick in September of junior year. Nothing dramatic, just the slow decline of age. I visited every weekend, helping Grandpa with her care, reading to her from my favorite books. She died peacefully in November, surrounded by family, exactly how she would have wanted. The funeral was large, filled with people whose lives she'd touched. Dad showed up, standing in the back, not approaching. I saw him there but didn't acknowledge him. This wasn't about us. After everyone left, Grandpa handed me a letter. She wrote this for you, made me promise to give it to you after. I opened it sitting in my car, Grandma's familiar handwriting blurring through tears. My darling girl, it read. If you're reading this, I'm gone, but I want you to know how proud I am, not just of your writing or your success, but of your strength. You chose yourself when it would have been easier to accept crumbs. You demanded better when everyone told you to be grateful for less. You survived losing your mother and your father and built something beautiful from the wreckage. That takes courage most people never find. Live boldly. Love fiercely. Don't settle for people who don't choose you back. And remember, your mother is with you always. In your writing, in your kindness, in the way you show up for people who matter. She'd be so proud. I love you, Grandma. I sobbed in that parking lot for 20 minutes before driving back to campus, where Ivy was waiting with takeout and a hug, and no expectations beyond being present. The memoir sales continued steadily through the holidays. My publisher wanted a second book, either a follow-up memoir or a novel. I pitched them a fictionalized version of my story, changing names and details but keeping the emotional core. They bought it for twice what they'd paid for the first book. Junior year ended. I spent the summer writing the novel between shifts at the publishing house, crafting a narrative about a girl named Ren whose mother dies and whose father chooses his new girlfriend over his daughter. But in this version, Ren doesn't just expose him at the wedding, she builds an entire life of art and community and chosen family that becomes a testament to surviving without him. Dad tried to contact me one last time through a letter forwarded by Grandpa. Not threatening this time, just honest. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, he wrote. I know I destroyed our relationship through my own selfishness and neglect. I'm writing not to ask for anything, but to tell you that I'm trying to change. I'm in therapy twice a week. I'm working through why I ran from grief instead of facing it. I'm understanding finally how much damage I did. I don't expect you to care or to welcome me back into your life. I just wanted you to know that your book, as painful as it was to read, opened my eyes. You deserved better. Your mother deserved better. I'm sorry I couldn't be the father either of you needed. I hope you're happy. I hope you're healing. I hope someday you can think of me without anger. That would be enough, Dad. I read it twice, then filed it away in a drawer. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe someday we'd have coffee and try to build something from the ruins. But not today. Today I had a novel to finish, an internship to complete, a life to live. Senior year began with a sense of possibility. Patricia and I hosted parties in our apartment. I took advanced writing workshops with visiting authors. Ivy and I moved past slow and into committed, talking about post-graduation plans and what our future might look like together. The novel was finished in December and scheduled for publication the following fall. My editor called it devastating and hopeful in equal measure, which felt right. That's what healing was after all. Holding both the pain and the hope, not letting either one consume you entirely. I graduated in May, 4 years after Dad had missed my high school ceremony. This time the auditorium was full of people who'd chosen to be there. Grandpa, my aunt, Kennedy, Patricia's family, Ivy, Dr. Ward, even Rachel, my agent. When they called my name, I walked across that stage wearing Mom's pearl necklace and Grandma's watch, carrying the love of women who'd shown me what it meant to be strong. The empty seat I'd reserved for Dad stayed empty, but I didn't scan the crowd looking for him this time. I didn't need him there to validate my achievement. After the ceremony, we all went to dinner at Mom's favorite restaurant, the one she and I had gone to for special occasions before she got too sick to leave the house. I ordered her usual, chicken piccata with extra capers, and felt her presence in the laughter and the stories and the way my chosen family filled the table. Ivy squeezed my hand under the table. You good? Yeah, I said, meaning it. I'm really good. That night, scrolling through Instagram, I saw Dad had posted a photo. Not of me, of course. He hadn't been there. But of an old picture of us from when I was maybe 6, sitting on his shoulders at a carnival. The caption read, "Proud of my graduate. Wish I could have been there to see it in person." The comments were supportive. People who didn't know the full story offering congratulations. Part of me wanted to correct the record, to point out the lie. But I didn't. His need for public validation was no longer my problem. I posted my own photo instead. Me in my cap and gown, surrounded by everyone who'd actually shown up. Grateful for the people who've chosen me every day. This degree is as much yours as it is mine. The comments flooded in. Friends from college, readers of my memoir, strangers who'd followed my story. Words of support, pride, recognition, and at the very bottom, one from Brielle. Your mom would be so proud. I'm proud. You did this. I went to bed that night thinking about empty chairs and the people who fill them, about graduation programs and wedding ceremonies and all the ways we tell people they matter, about forgiveness and boundaries and the difference between the two. Dad had made his choices. I'd made mine, and mine had led me here, to a future unwritten, to love that showed up, to a version of myself that Mom would recognize and Grandma would celebrate. The empty chair would always be empty, but the rest of my life, that was full, and that was enough. My grandmother rewrote her will the day after she met my fiance. My cousins didn't know why until the funeral. I should have seen it coming. My grandmother, Helena Thornwood, wasn't the type of woman who did anything without calculation. She'd built a pharmaceutical empire from nothing, survived 3 husbands, and could smell weakness like a shark detecting blood in water. At 89, she was sharper than most people half her age, with eyes that could strip the lies off you like paint thinner. When I called to tell her I was engaged, there was a pause on the line. Not the happy, tearful silence you'd expect. Just quiet calculation. Bring him to Sunday dinner, she said finally. I want to meet the man who caught you. Caught. Not won over. Not fell in love with. Caught. I should have paid attention to her word choice. My fiance's name was Bennett Cole. We'd met 2 years earlier at a corporate retreat where I was presenting on market analysis, and he was representing his family's investment firm. He had the kind of smile that made you forget your own name, dark hair that fell just right, and a way of looking at you like you were the only person in the room worth talking to. Within 6 months, we were inseparable. Within a year, he proposed on a beach in Santorini with a ring that cost more than my car. My mother cried happy tears. My father shook his hand and welcomed him to the family. My 2 brothers clapped him on the back and talked about golf weekends. Everyone loved Bennett, except, it turned out, my grandmother. That Sunday dinner was in March. I remember because the cherry trees in her estate garden were just starting to bloom, and Bennett kept commenting on how beautiful everything was. Her house sat on 12 acres outside Greenwich, a stone mansion that looked like it had been airlifted from the English countryside. We arrived at 5:01 p.m. sharp. My grandmother didn't tolerate lateness. She met us in the foyer, wearing a cream silk blouse and pearls, her white hair pulled back in her signature chignon. She looked Bennett up and down the way a jeweler examines a suspicious diamond. "So, you're the investment banker," she said. Not a question. "Yes, ma'am. It's an honor to finally meet you. I've heard so many wonderful things." Bennett extended his hand. She looked at it for a moment before shaking. Her grip was firm, the handshake lasting exactly 2 seconds. I'd seen her do this hundreds of times. It was her measuring tool. "We'll see," she said, then turned and walked toward the dining room. "Dinner is ready. Don't let it get cold." The meal was uncomfortable from the start. My grandmother sat at the head of the table, me on her right, Bennett on her left. The dining room could seat 20, but it was just the 3 of us under the crystal chandelier, being served by her longtime housekeeper, Pilar. "Tell me about your family," my grandmother said as Pilar set down the first course, French onion soup. Bennett smiled, completely at ease. "My father runs Cole Investment Group. We specialize in private equity and venture capital. My mother sits on several nonprofit boards. I have one sister, Vanessa. She's a corporate attorney in Manhattan. And your grandparents? Both deceased, unfortunately. My father's parents passed when I was young. My mother's mother died last year." My grandmother sipped her wine. "What did they do before they died?" "My grandfather on my father's side was in manufacturing, steel mostly. Built the business from nothing during the Depression. My grandmother on my mother's side was a homemaker." "Homemaker." My grandmother repeated the word like it was a specimen under glass. "And your father's business? Did he build it or inherit it?" I jumped in. "Grandmother, Bennett's family background is..." She held up one finger. I fell silent. In her house, that gesture was law. Bennett didn't seem bothered. He inherited the foundation but grew it substantially. Turned a $50 million portfolio into $2 billion over 30 years. Impressive numbers. She paused. "What's your client retention rate?" "Excuse me? Client retention. How many clients does your firm lose annually versus gain?" Bennett's smile flickered. "Just for a second. I don't have those exact figures memorized. You work in investments and don't know your retention rate." Not a question. A statement of fact, delivered like a knife between ribs. The soup course ended in silence. During the main course, roasted duck with cherry reduction, my grandmother shifted tactics. "My granddaughter tells me you proposed in Greece." "Yes, ma'am. Santorini. We watched the sunset from our villa. Expensive trip, worth every penny." He reached across to squeeze my hand. My grandmother's eyes followed the gesture. "And the ring. Where did you purchase it?" "Tiffany, 5th Avenue location." "May I see it?" I extended my hand. She pulled reading glasses from her pocket and examined the ring with the intensity of a gemologist. The diamond was 2 carats, emerald cut, platinum setting. Bennett had been so proud when he showed me the receipt. "Pretty," she said finally, handing my hand back like returning a library book. "What did it cost?" "Grandmother." I felt my face flush. "It's a fair question. I'm curious what my granddaughter is worth in his estimation." Bennett's jaw tightened. 35,000. She nodded slowly. "And your annual income?" "I don't think that's..." "My granddaughter stands to inherit a substantial portion of my estate. I think it's reasonable to understand the financial position of the man she's marrying, unless you'd prefer she sign a prenuptial agreement." The silence was deafening. Even Pilar, who had seen 40 years of my grandmother's dinner tactics, looked uncomfortable as she cleared plates. "I make $450,000 annually," Bennett said stiffly, "plus bonuses that typically run another $200,000. I think that's more than sufficient to provide for your granddaughter." "Sufficient," my grandmother smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. That's exactly the word I would have chosen. Dessert was tiramisu. No one ate much. After dinner, my grandmother asked Bennett to wait in the library while she walked me to the garden. The cherry blossoms glowed pink in the twilight. "You're not marrying him," she said. "Excuse me? That man. You're not marrying him." "Grandmother, I don't know what you think you saw, but I saw everything I needed to see." She stopped beside her prized rose bushes, the ones she'd cultivated for 30 years. "He didn't know his client retention rate because he doesn't work closely enough with the business to know. That's a basic metric any serious investment banker would have memorized. He couldn't maintain eye contact when discussing his finances." "And that ring? What about it?" "It's not from Tiffany. It's a very good replica, but the setting is slightly off. The proportions are wrong. I've purchased enough jewelry in my lifetime to know the difference." She turned to face me fully. "Your fiance is a liar, and not a particularly skilled one. The only reason you haven't noticed is because you're in love. Love makes smart women stupid." I felt like I'd been slapped. "You spent 2 hours with him. You don't know him like I do. I know men like him. I've buried 3 husbands, remember? I know exactly what it looks like when someone loves your money more than they love you. That's cruel and unfair, perhaps. But I'm also right." She pulled a business card from her pocket. "This is a private investigator I've used for years. Discreet, thorough, expensive. Use him or don't. But I'm changing my will tomorrow morning. If you marry this man, you'll inherit nothing. Not the estate, not the business shares, not the trust fund. Nothing." I stared at her in shock. My grandmother's estate was worth approximately $180 million. My inheritance was supposed to be around $30 million split with my brothers and cousins. That money represented security, freedom, the ability to pursue the career I wanted without worrying about finances. "You're blackmailing me. I'm protecting you." She pressed the business card into my hand. "Love makes us blind. Money makes us see clearly. Give yourself 2 weeks with that investigator. If I'm wrong, I'll change the will back and apologize at your wedding. But if I'm right," she paused, "if I'm right, you'll thank me one day." I drove home in silence. Bennett asked 3 times what was wrong. I told him I had a headache. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat in the bathroom with the investigator's business card. The guy's name was Richard Novak. The card was simple, just a name and phone number. No company name, no website. The kind of person you called when you needed answers you couldn't get legally. I told myself I wouldn't call. My grandmother was paranoid, bitter from bad marriages, unable to trust anyone. Bennett loved me. He'd shown me in 1,000 small ways over 2 years. The way he'd hold my coat, remember my coffee order, text good morning every single day, introduce me to his family and friends. But at 3 a.m., I found myself Googling Cole Investment Group. The website looked professional. Photos of a glass office building in Manhattan, team bios, client testimonials. Bennett's photo showed him in a sharp suit, smiling confidently. His bio listed Columbia Business School, 10 years in private equity, specialized expertise in tech startups. I clicked through to the About page. The firm was founded in 1989 by Warren Cole. Current assets under management, $2.1 billion. Office locations in New York, London, and Hong Kong. Everything checked out. I searched for news articles. Found several mentions of Warren Cole at charity galas and industry conferences. Nothing about Bennett specifically, but that wasn't unusual for someone mid-level in the company. At 4 a.m., I called the investigator's number. It went to voicemail. Mr. Novak, my name is Catherine Thornwood. My grandmother Helena gave me your card. I'd like to hire you for a background check. Please call me back. I left my number and hung up. He called at 8 a.m. His voice was gravelly, like he smoked too much or didn't sleep enough. Miss Thornwood, your grandmother mentioned you might call. My rate is $500 an hour plus expenses. I require a $5,000 retainer. For that, I'll run a complete background check, financial history, previous relationships, employment verification, and anything else that seems relevant. Results in 1 to 2 weeks. Still interested? My hands shook. This felt like a betrayal. What if I'm wrong? What if he finds out I hired you? I'm very good at being invisible. No one will know unless you tell them. And if you find nothing, then you're marrying a good man and your grandmother is a paranoid old woman. Either way, you'll know for certain. I gave him my credit card information. Bennett and I had brunch plans that morning. He was unusually quiet, picking at his eggs Benedict. Your grandmother hates me, he said finally. She doesn't hate you. She's just protective. She's like that with everyone. She thinks I'm after your money. I tried to laugh. She thinks everyone is after money. It's how she survived 3 husbands and built a pharmaceutical empire. Paranoia is practically her religion, but she's wrong about me. He reached across the table, taking my hand. You know that, right? I fell in love with you before I even knew who your grandmother was. That night at the corporate retreat when you demolished Thompson's entire quarterly forecast in front of the board, you were wearing that navy dress and you didn't take any shit from anyone. That's when I knew. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. I know, I said. He smiled, relieved. So we're okay? We're okay. But we weren't. Because once doubt enters a relationship, it spreads like mold in damp walls. Invisible at first, then everywhere. I started noticing small things. How Bennett always suggested expensive restaurants, but never insisted on paying the full bill. How he'd mentioned casually that he needed a new suit, but his bonus hadn't come through yet. How he asked about my grandmother's estate more than he asked about my grandmother. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe my grandmother had poisoned me against him. Or maybe I was finally seeing what had been there all along. Richard Novak called 9 days later. We should meet in person, he said. I'm in Greenwich this afternoon. There's a coffee shop on Main Street, The Daily Grind. 3 p.m. Is it bad? A pause. Miss Thornwood, I think you should sit down when we talk. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered a coffee I didn't drink, and sat in the back corner booth. Novak showed up exactly at 3 p.m., carrying a manila folder thick enough to be a novel. He was in his 50s, gray hair, tired eyes, the kind of face that had seen too much of humanity's worst side. He sat down without ordering anything and slid the folder across the table. I'm going to summarize first, then you can read the details. Stop me at any point if you need a minute. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Bennett Cole is not his real name. His real name is Benjamin Coulter. He changed it legally 8 years ago after his first marriage ended in divorce. His ex-wife, Patricia, filed a restraining order against him for financial abuse. He emptied their joint accounts, maxed out credit cards in her name, and disappeared for 6 months. She's still paying off the debt. My coffee cup trembled in my hands. He doesn't work for Cole Investment Group. He works there, technically, but not in the capacity he's claimed. He's in sales support, essentially a glorified assistant. His salary is $87,000, not $450,000. The bonuses he mentioned don't exist. But I've seen his office. I've met his colleagues. The office is real. The title on his business cards is not. Cole Investment Group has no record of a Bennett Cole in any senior position. I spoke with Warren Cole's personal assistant. She'd never heard of him until I mentioned your grandmother. Then she said, and I quote, "Oh, Benjamin in sales. Nice kid, but not very bright." Each word felt like a physical blow. His family background is partially true. Warren Cole is his second cousin, which is how he got the job. But his father doesn't run the company. His father is Warren's younger brother, Thomas, who manages a regional car dealership in New Jersey. His mother doesn't sit on nonprofit boards. She's a dental hygienist. His sister, Vanessa, is not a corporate attorney. She's a paralegal. The ring, I whispered. Novak pulled out a photograph. I had a jeweler examine it discreetly. It's cubic zirconia in a gold-plated setting, worth approximately $400. The Tiffany box it came in was purchased empty on eBay for $50. I thought I might vomit. There's more. Novak's voice softened slightly. He has $127,000 in credit card debt across 7 different cards, 2 judgments against him for unpaid loans. His apartment, the one you visited, is rented month to month and he's 3 months behind on rent. His landlord is preparing eviction proceedings. Why? My voice cracked. Why would he do this? He needed money, badly. And you, Miss Thornwood, represent the solution to all his problems. Your grandmother's estate is public knowledge in certain circles. When he found out who you were, he saw his way out of debt and into comfort. I stared at the folder. How did you find all this? Public records, mostly. Court documents, credit reports, interviews with people who know him. Your grandmother gave me carte blanche to dig, and dig I did. I'm very good at my job. Does he know that I hired you? No. And he won't unless you tell him. I sat in that coffee shop for 2 hours after Novak left, reading every page of the report. Bank statements showing overdrafts, court filings from his ex-wife detailing his manipulation, character references from former colleagues describing him as charming but unreliable, photos of his real apartment, not the one he'd shown me, a studio with water-stained walls and broken furniture, text messages he'd sent to a friend, recovered somehow by Novak's investigation, found my retirement plan. She's loaded and has no idea I'm broke. Wedding in 6 months? Then I'm set for life. I wanted to cry but couldn't. The shock was too complete. At 7 p.m., Bennett texted, "Dinner at our place tonight? I'll cook." Our place. The apartment we'd been planning to move into together after the wedding. The lease I'd signed, the deposit I'd paid, because he said his bonus was delayed. I drove there on autopilot. He answered the door with a smile, wearing an apron, the smell of garlic and wine filling the apartment. Perfect timing. Pasta primavera, your favorite. I walked past him into the living room and set the manila folder on the coffee table. "What's that?" he asked. "Your life, the real one." His face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, panic, then finally, cold calculation. "You hired someone to investigate me." "My grandmother did. I just followed through." "Jesus Christ." He ripped off the apron and threw it on the couch. "That paranoid bitch couldn't leave it alone, could she?" "Don't call her that." "Why not? She spent 2 years trying to break us up. And now she's succeeded." He ran his hands through his hair. "You don't understand. I can explain all of this." "Explain what? That your name isn't Bennett? That you don't actually work in private equity? That your entire life is a lie?" "It's not a lie. It's curated. Everyone curates their image. You think anyone presents their worst self when dating? There's a difference between putting your best foot forward and committing fraud." "Fraud?" He laughed bitterly. "I love you. That's not fraud. The ring is cubic zirconia." Silent. "I was going to replace it," he said finally. "After we got married and my situation improved. I just needed a little time." "Your situation." I felt eerily calm now, like I was watching this conversation happen to someone else. "You mean you're $127,000 in debt? Or the fact that you're about to be evicted? Or maybe the ex-wife you never mentioned who had to get a restraining order because you destroyed her credit?" His jaw clenched. Patricia was vindictive. Stop. Just stop. I pulled the engagement ring off my finger. It felt lighter than I remembered. "Here, sell it, return it, keep it as a souvenir. I don't care." I set it on the folder and walked toward the door. "Wait." His voice changed, became soft, pleading. "Catherine, please. I know I messed up. I should have been honest from the start. But everything I feel for you is real. The love is real." I turned back to look at him, really look at him, the man I'd planned to marry, to build a life with, to grow old beside. And I realized I was looking at a stranger who happened to look like someone I loved. "Maybe you do love me," I said, "but you love my grandmother's money more, and I'll never know for sure which one you'd choose if you had to pick." I left him standing in that apartment, walked down 3 flights of stairs, and sat in my car for 20 minutes before I could drive. When I finally made it home to my own apartment, I found my grandmother sitting in my living room. She had a key from years ago, back when she used to check on me during college. "Pilar told me you looked upset when you left the coffee shop this afternoon," she said. "I wanted to make sure you were all right." I sat down beside her on the couch and finally let myself cry. She held me the way she used to when I was a child and had scraped my knee, steady and solid, not saying anything because there was nothing to say. "You were right," I managed between sobs. "About everything. I take no pleasure in being right. Not about this." "How did you know? After just one dinner?" She pulled back to look at me. "I've been wealthy for 60 years. I've had 5 serious marriage proposals, 3 marriages, and countless men who thought they could charm their way into my bank account. You develop an instinct. The way he touched things in my house, assessing their value. The way he calculated every answer before speaking. The way he watched you like you were something he owned rather than someone he loved." She paused. "And that handshake. A man who works in finance has a firm handshake. His was sweaty and weak. The grip of someone who knows they're lying. I feel so stupid." "You're not stupid. You're kind and trusting, and you wanted to believe the best in someone. Those are virtues, not flaws. He's the one who should feel stupid for thinking he could fool a Thornwood woman." I almost smiled. Almost. "What do I do now?" "Now you move forward, cancel the wedding, block his number, and live your life. And possibly change your apartment locks because that man gave me very bad vibes, and I wouldn't put it past him to try something desperate." She was right about that too. 3 days later, Bennett showed up at my apartment at 2 a.m., drunk, pounding on the door and shouting about second chances. My neighbor called the police. He was arrested for drunk and disorderly conduct. 1 week later, he tried to sell an interview to a tabloid about my romance with the Thornwood heiress. The tabloid called my grandmother to fact-check. She threatened to sue them into bankruptcy. The story never ran. 2 weeks later, his landlord successfully evicted him. He moved back to New Jersey with his parents. The month after that, my grandmother changed her will again. She called me to her house on a Sunday afternoon in early May. The cherry trees were in full bloom now, the garden explosive with pink and white blossoms. "I'm not getting any younger," she said over tea. "And that business with Bennett made me realize something. I've been thinking about my legacy all wrong." "What do you mean?" "I've spent 60 years building a pharmaceutical empire. I have $180 million in assets, property across 3 states, and a company that employs 3,000 people. When I die, my children and grandchildren will inherit everything and probably squander half of it within a decade." She sipped her tea. "Your Uncle Thomas will gamble it away. Your Aunt Louise will donate it all to that ridiculous psychic who convinced her she's descended from Egyptian royalty. Your cousins will buy yachts and vacation homes they'll visit twice. this was all probably true. But you, she continued, you have something they don't. Sense, integrity, spine. Grandmother, let me finish. I'm leaving you the controlling share of Thornwood Pharmaceuticals, 51% of the company, which includes board authority and operational control. The estate, including this house and all properties. The majority of the liquid assets. Your brothers will receive substantial trusts, more than enough to live comfortably. Your cousins will get smaller inheritances. But the heart of everything, the real power and responsibility, goes to you. I couldn't breathe. That's too much. They'll be furious. They'll be outraged, she agreed cheerfully. Your Uncle Thomas will probably sue. Your Aunt Louise will try to have me declared incompetent. Your cousins will cut you off completely. Are you prepared for that? I don't know. Then prepare yourself, because this is happening. I've already met with my lawyers. The new will is being drawn up as we speak. I'm also putting provisions in place to make it airtight, impossible to contest. When I die, you'll inherit everything, and there's nothing they can do about it. Why me? Because you're the only one who didn't ask for it. Because you walked away from a man you loved when you realized he was using you. Because you care more about doing things right than doing things easy. She set down her teacup. And because I trust you to preserve what I've built instead of destroying it. I left her house that afternoon feeling like I was carrying a weight I hadn't asked for but couldn't refuse. My grandmother lived another 3 years. She died on a Tuesday morning in October in her sleep at the age of 92. Peaceful, the doctors said. No pain. The funeral was on a Saturday. The church was packed with business associates, employees, distant relatives, and people who'd known her at various points in her long life. She'd requested a simple service. No eulogies except from immediate family. I gave the first eulogy, talking about her strength, her intelligence, her fierce protection of the people she loved. My voice cracked twice, but I made it through. Then my Uncle Thomas gave a eulogy that was mostly about how generous and fair she'd always been, with meaningful looks at me that suggested he had no idea what was coming. After the service, everyone gathered at the estate for the reception. The lawyer, Richard Sterling, pulled immediate family into the library at 4 p.m. Me, my 2 brothers, my Uncle Thomas, my Aunt Louise, and my 4 cousins. We're here for the reading of Helena Thornwood's last will and testament, Sterling began. He was 70, formal, and had been my grandmother's lawyer for 40 years. I'll summarize the key provisions, then provide full documentation to each of you. My Uncle Thomas sat forward eagerly. My Aunt Louise had her hands folded in prayer position. My cousins were already planning what they'd buy with their inheritance. I could see it in their eyes. First, to her employees. Mrs. Thornwood has left a pension fund of $10 million to be distributed among all current employees based on years of service. Her housekeeper, Pilar Mendoza, receives an additional $500,000 and lifetime residence in the guest house. Surprised murmurs. Second, to her grandchildren. To Oliver and Nathan Thornwood, my brothers, she leaves a trust fund of $3 million each, to be distributed over 15 years. My brothers looked at each other, clearly disappointed but not wanting to seem greedy. To Bradley, Vanessa, Timothy, and Rachel Morrison, my cousins, she leaves a trust fund of $500,000 each. My cousin Bradley stood up. That's it? $500,000? My grandmother was worth nearly $200 million. Sterling didn't blink. Please sit down, Mr. Morrison. I'm not finished. Bradley sat, his face red. Third, to her children. To Thomas Thornwood and Louise Morrison, she leaves a trust fund of $2 million each, to be distributed over 10 years, with the stipulation that neither can contest this will without forfeiting their entire inheritance. My Uncle Thomas went pale. What the hell is this? Let me continue, Sterling said calmly. Fourth, the bulk of the estate. This includes Thornwood Pharmaceuticals, all properties, investment portfolios, and remaining liquid assets, valued at approximately $168 million. He paused. Mrs. Thornwood leaves this to her granddaughter, Catherine Ann Thornwood, with full operational and decisional authority. The room exploded. That's insane. She can't do that. We'll contest this will. This is fraud. Sterling raised his voice over the chaos. Mrs. Thornwood anticipated your reactions. She had full psychiatric evaluations performed by 3 independent doctors in the week before her death, all confirming her complete mental competency. The will has been structured to withstand any legal challenge. And I remind you all that anyone who contests will forfeit their inheritance entirely. My Uncle Thomas turned to me, his face purple with rage. You did this. You manipulated a senile old woman into— Watch your mouth, I said quietly. She was sharper at 92 than you've ever been. You don't deserve this. You're 30 years old. You have no experience running a company. I have an MBA from Wharton and 6 years of experience in corporate strategy. What do you have besides gambling debts and failed investments? He looked like he might hit me. My brother Nathan stepped between us. My Aunt Louise was crying theatrically. Helena was my mother. How could she betray me like this? She didn't betray you. She just knew you'd waste it all on that charlatan psychic who convinced you that you need $40,000 in crystals to align your chakras. My cousin Rachel spoke up, her voice shaking with anger. We're family. You can't just take everything. I didn't take anything. It was given to me. There's a difference. We'll fight this, Bradley said. We'll tie this up in court for years. You'll never see a penny. Sterling cleared his throat. Actually, Mr. Morrison, if you contest this will, you'll not only forfeit your $500,000 inheritance, but you'll also be liable for all legal fees on both sides, per the terms Mrs. Thornwood specified. I estimate that would cost you approximately $2 million in the unlikely event you actually made it to court, which you wouldn't, because this will is ironclad. The library fell silent. My Uncle Thomas stood up slowly. You're not a Thornwood anymore. You're dead to this family. Then I guess I'm in good company with grandmother, I replied. One by one, they filed out. My brothers lingered. Are you okay? Oliver asked. I don't know yet. For what it's worth, Nathan said, I think she made the right choice. You're the only one who actually gave a shit about her as a person, not a bank account. Thanks. But yeah, Thanksgiving is going to be really awkward from now on. After everyone left, I walked through my grandmother's house alone, the place where I'd spent countless Sunday dinners, Christmas mornings, summer afternoons in the garden. The house was mine now, all of it. The responsibility felt crushing. I found a letter on her desk addressed to me in her elegant handwriting. My dearest Catherine, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're probably feeling overwhelmed. Good. Being overwhelmed means you understand the magnitude of what I'm trusting you. Your relatives are furious by now. Let them be. Fury fade. What matters is what you do with what I've given you. I built Thornwood Pharmaceuticals to help people, to cure diseases, to ease suffering, to make the world slightly less terrible. In recent years, the company has lost its way. The board cares more about profit margins than patients. Your Uncle Thomas wanted to jack up insulin prices by 400%. I stopped him, but I won't be here to stop him forever. That's your job now. You have the power to steer this company back to its founding principles. To invest in research that helps people instead of just making money. To make medications affordable. To use our resources for good instead of greed. It won't be easy. People will fight you. They'll call you naive, idealistic, foolish. They'll try to vote you out, undermine you, sabotage your decisions. You'll make enemies of people who smile to your face, but you're strong enough to handle it. I know because you walked away from Bennett when it would have been easier to stay. You chose truth over comfort. That's the mark of a woman who can change the world. Also, I'm sorry for being such a cantankerous old bat. I know I wasn't always easy to love, but I loved you fiercely. And I'm trusting you with my life's work because you're the only one worthy of it. Don't let the bastards grind you down. All my love. Grandmother. I cried reading that letter. Not the shocked tears from the Bennett breakup, but deep, wrenching sobs that shook my whole body. She'd known I would doubt myself, would wonder if I deserved this, would feel crushed by the responsibility. And she'd left me a roadmap anyway. That was 3 years ago. Today, I'm 33. I'm the CEO of Thornwood Pharmaceuticals. We've cut insulin prices by 60%, invested $50 million in cancer research, and launched a program providing free medications to low-income patients. Profits are down 8%, but we're actually helping people, which was the entire point. My Uncle Thomas did sue. The lawsuit was dismissed within 4 months. He hasn't spoken to me since. My Aunt Louise sends me threatening letters occasionally, all of which I forward to my lawyers. My cousins blocked me on social media and tell people I stole their inheritance. I sleep fine at night. My brothers and I have dinner once a month. They've invested their trust funds wisely and never ask me for money, which I respect. I never married. After Bennett, I developed trust issues that took 2 years of therapy to work through. I date occasionally, but I'm in no hurry. The company keeps me busy. Pilar still lives in the guest house. She's 71 now, and we have tea together every Sunday afternoon in the garden beneath the cherry trees. Last week, a young woman came to my office. She was 24, bright-eyed, fresh out of business school. She wanted to pitch me a startup idea about affordable prescription delivery services. During her pitch, I watched the way she spoke. Confident but not arrogant. Passionate but realistic. She reminded me of myself at that age, before Bennett, before I learned that people weren't always what they seemed. After she finished, I asked her a question my grandmother once asked me. What's your client retention rate? She didn't miss a beat. We're too new to have retention data yet, but our pilot program had 94% customer satisfaction, and preliminary surveys suggest 87% would sign up for recurring service. I smiled. When can you start? Her eyes went wide. You're investing? I'm offering you a job, head of new initiatives, $120,000 salary, full benefits, budget to build your team. You'll report directly to me. I don't know what to say. Say yes, then prove you deserve it. She said yes. As she left my office, practically floating, I thought about the chain of events that led me here. My grandmother's paranoia that turned out to be wisdom. Bennett's betrayal that turned out to be a blessing. The inheritance that I never wanted but now couldn't imagine giving up. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd ignored my grandmother's warning. If I'd married Bennett, had his children, built a life based on lies. Would I have ever discovered the truth? Would I have spent decades wondering why something felt slightly off, unable to name it? Or would love have been enough to compensate for the fraud underneath? I'll never know. And I'm grateful for that. What I do know is this. My grandmother rewrote her will the day after she met my fiance, because she saw through him instantly. My cousins didn't understand why until the funeral, when they learned that character matters more than blood, and that the old woman they'd dismissed as paranoid was actually the smartest person any of us had ever known. She saved me from destroying my life, and then she trusted me with hers. I keep her letter in my desk drawer. On hard days when the board is fighting me, or the quarterly earnings disappoint shareholders, or my uncle's lawyers file yet another frivolous motion, I read it again. Don't let the bastards grind you down. I won't, grandmother. I promise. Last month, I established the Helena Thornwood Memorial Scholarship Fund, full rides to business school for women from low-income backgrounds. The first recipient is a 22-year-old from the Bronx whose mother died of diabetes because she couldn't afford insulin. The irony isn't lost on me. The company that made medication unaffordable is now paying for someone to learn how to make it affordable. My grandmother would have appreciated that. The pharmaceutical industry hates me. Other CEOs call me naive, say I'm destroying shareholder value, predict the company will collapse within a decade. They might be right, but at least I'll collapse knowing I tried to do something good instead of just profitable. My Uncle Thomas gave an interview last year to a business magazine. He said I was running my grandmother's legacy into the ground, that I was too young and idealistic to understand real business. He predicted I'd be ousted within 2 years. The journalist asked him why he thought my grandmother chose me instead of him. Honestly, I think she'd lost her mind by the end. Dementia, probably. She couldn't have been thinking clearly. When I read that interview, I laughed so hard I cried. My grandmother had 3 psychiatric evaluations in her final week, all confirming she was sharper than most people half her age. She'd named every board member, recited the company's quarterly earnings from memory, and discussed pharmaceutical patent law with her lawyer for 2 hours without notes. She knew exactly what she was doing. She was giving me a chance to prove that making money and making a difference didn't have to be mutually exclusive. That success could be measured in lives improved instead of just profits increased. That a company could be powerful and ethical at the same time. I'm still trying to prove her right. Some days are better than others. Last quarter, we launched a partnership with 3 African nations to provide antiretroviral drugs for HIV patients at cost. We'll lose $12 million this year on that program alone. Wall Street analysts downgraded our stock, but 40,000 people who would have died will live instead. I'd call that a win. My grandmother used to say that wealth was a responsibility, not a reward, that having money meant you had the power to change things, and that power came with the obligation to use it wisely. I used to think that was just something rich people said to feel better about being rich. Now I understand it differently. Wealth is a tool. You can use it to build or destroy, to help or harm, to lift people up or keep them down. My Uncle Thomas wanted to use it to buy bigger houses and faster cars. My Aunt Louise wanted to use it to fund her delusions. My grandmother wanted to use it to leave the world better than she found it. And now, so do I. Yesterday, I visited her grave for the first time in months. The headstone is simple, just her name and dates, the way she requested. No flowery epitaphs or false sentiments. Just Helena Margaret Thornwood, 1931-2024. I brought cherry blossoms from the garden and laid them on the grave. I'm still figuring this out, I told her. The company, the family drama, all of it. Some days I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water. Other days I feel like I'm actually making a difference. I hope you're proud of me. I hope I'm doing this right. The wind rustled through the cemetery trees. Probably just wind, but maybe not. I like to think she's still watching, still protecting me the way she did when she saw through Bennett in a single dinner, still guiding me toward better choices, smarter decisions, a life lived with integrity instead of convenience. Or maybe I've just internalized her voice so completely that it's become my own. Either way, it works. I drove back to the office after the cemetery visit, signed off on 3 new research grants, approved the expansion of our patient assistance program, fired a board member who'd been taking kickbacks from suppliers. Just another day preserving my grandmother's legacy, and absolutely crushing my Uncle Thomas's dreams. The best revenge, it turns out, isn't living well. It's living ethically while others fail morally. It's succeeding on your own terms while they insist you're doing it wrong. It's changing the world in small, meaningful ways while they chase money that will never make them happy. My grandmother understood that. Now, finally, so do I. Bennett tried to contact me 6 months ago. He sent a letter to my office, addressed to Catherine Thornwood, CEO. The title must have killed him to write. The letter was 3 pages of apologies and explanations. He'd been desperate. He'd made mistakes. He was a different person now. He'd gotten therapy, cleaned up his finances, turned his life around. He wasn't asking for money or second chances. He just wanted me to know he was sorry and that he'd never stopped regretting losing me. I read the letter twice, then filed it away. Not in the trash, but in a folder marked closed chapters. Because that's what Bennett is now. A closed chapter. A lesson learned. A reminder that my grandmother's paranoia was actually just pattern recognition honed over 6 decades of watching people reveal their true selves when money entered the equation. Would I have learned that lesson if she'd just told me? Probably not. I would have dismissed her as cynical, jaded, unable to see the good in people. But by forcing me to discover it myself, by hiring that investigator, and letting me read the evidence with my own eyes, she gave me something more valuable than money or property or company shares. She gave me clarity. And clarity, it turns out, is worth more than love. At least the kind of love that comes with a price tag attached. Real love, the kind my grandmother had for me, doesn't calculate cost-benefit ratios. It doesn't weigh inheritance against affection. It doesn't smile while planning to betray you the moment the ring is on your finger. Real love protects you, even when protection means breaking your heart temporarily, to save you from shattering it permanently. That's what my grandmother did. That's what I'm trying to pay forward now, through scholarships and patient programs and research grants that might never turn a profit but will definitely save lives. I'm 33 years old, running a pharmaceutical empire I never expected to inherit, fighting battles I never trained for, making decisions that affect thousands of people I'll never meet. Some days I feel like I'm drowning. Most days I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And every day I'm grateful my grandmother saw through Bennett Cole's perfect smile and expensive suit to the desperate, lying man underneath. She saved my life by destroying my engagement. And then she gave me the tools to save other lives by entrusting me with her company. That's the thing about real wealth. It's not about the money itself. It's about what you do with it when you have it. Whether you hoard it selfishly or share it strategically. Whether you use it to build walls around yourself or bridges toward others. My grandmother built bridges her whole life. Now I'm maintaining them. And occasionally, when my Uncle Thomas is being particularly insufferable, I burn the bridges he tries to rebuild toward me. That part, I admit, I enjoy. Last week, I got a LinkedIn message from Patricia, Bennett's ex-wife. She'd heard about him trying to contact me and wanted to make sure I was okay. We met for coffee. She was 38, a child psychologist, remarried to a teacher she'd met at a workshop. She'd paid off the debts Bennett left her, and was now helping other women who'd been financially abused. I wanted to thank you, she said, for not giving him a second chance. I didn't do it for you. I did it for me. I know, but it still matters. Every woman who sees through him is a woman he can't hurt. And maybe, eventually, he'll run out of targets and have to actually face himself. Or he'll just get better at lying. She smiled sadly. Probably. But at least we're both free of him. We exchanged numbers and promised to stay in touch. I don't know if we will. Sometimes the only connection you need with someone is the shared experience of surviving the same predator. But it felt good to meet her, to see that life continues after you walk away from someone you loved, that you can recover from betrayal, rebuild your credit and your confidence, and find someone who actually deserves you. She gave me hope that maybe someday I'd trust someone again enough to let them fully into my life. Maybe. Right now, I'm content with my work, my brothers, my Sunday teas with Pilar, and my grandmother's ghost whispering warnings whenever someone seems too good to be true. It's a good life, not the one I planned, but better than the one I avoided. And that's the real inheritance my grandmother left me. Not the money or the company or the properties, but the wisdom to recognize wolves in expensive suits, the courage to walk away from comfort when it's built on lies, the strength to accept responsibility I never asked for, and wield it with integrity instead of ego. She made me CEO of my own life long before she made me CEO of her company. And for that, more than anything else, I'm grateful. Tomorrow, we're launching a new drug that treats a rare pediatric cancer. It took 8 years to develop and will cost the company $40 million annually to manufacture and distribute. We'll sell it at cost to any family that needs it. The board fought me for 6 months on this decision. They said it would set a dangerous precedent, that other companies would expect similar pricing, that we couldn't sustain this business model. I told them my grandmother didn't build this company to sustain a business model. She built it to sustain lives. We took a vote. I won by 1 vote. Mine, technically, since I control 51% of shares. My Uncle Thomas called me a tyrant. I called him a capitalist sociopath. We don't talk much at holidays anymore. But tomorrow, 17 children who would have died will get treatment instead. Their parents won't have to choose between saving their child and bankrupting their family. They'll get both. That's worth being called a tyrant. That's worth every board fight, every angry shareholder, every business magazine predicting my downfall. My grandmother understood that the true measure of a life wasn't how much you accumulated, but what you did with what you had. Whether you used your power to take or to give. Whether you built monuments to yourself or foundations for others. She built both, actually. The company bears her name. But it serves people who will never know who she was. That's legacy. Everything else is just inheritance. And inheritance, I've learned, is only valuable if you're worthy of it. I'd like to think I'm proving I am. 1 patient program at a time, 1 research grant at a time, 1 decision that prioritizes people over profits. My grandmother rewrote her will the day after she met my fiance because she knew I could be more than Bennett Cole's wife, more than a woman who married into wealth, more than someone who inherited money and spent it on herself. She knew I could be someone who used wealth to change systems instead of just living comfortably within them. She bet everything on that belief. I'm spending every day trying to prove her right. And when I fail, because I do fail regularly, I remember what she wrote in that letter. Don't let the bastards grind you down. I won't, grandmother. I'll grind them down first. Ethically, legally, and with maximum quarterly earnings impact. That's the Thornwood way now, and I wouldn't have it any other way.